Hello, everyone. Happy, at least peaceful Saturday, if not happy. I am going to just help and keep talking while some people join us now that we're live. We're coming to you and we'll be with you for about an hour. So it's good to start seeing people join us. And the first question I'm going to ask all of you, oh, my first heart, thank you. The first question I'm going to ask all of you is just to check in. And how are you doing? And what are you learning? So while we're waiting for some people to join in, and I would love for you to get in that comment box. I am getting more skilled at this, and I'm going to be able to watch that comment box even more. But this is our time together. I have no set agenda except that I want to have contact moments where we can connect, because even though your mind is telling you you need structure and you need to change your whole life, or your whole life's falling apart, whatever your mind is telling you that you're craving, what the fix is, oh, if I just had a schedule, or if I just was a better multitasker, whatever your mind is telling you just isn't true. The true thing we're craving is connection, where we can drop the armor and just acknowledge, like, I'm screwing this thing up, but only daily, because no one is going to get through what we're going through today without feelings. You can get through without suffering. No one is going to get through this perfectly. You are going to screw this up, but only daily. Man, big introduction to your humanness. And how do you need to meet that? With love and compassion for yourself, love and compassion for other folks, and an eye towards your own evolution. That let's really make sure that we're doing this thing well. So as you people, as folks are coming on, I really want you just to tell me how you're doing and what your questions are. And the first person on my news feed is Harriet. Oh, it's so good to see you, Harriet. Harriet and I got to work together. She's an incredible nursing dean and provost and 100 other roles. And it's so good to see you, Harriet. I know things are so tough right now in your state. I hope that you guys are well. And gosh dang, these healthcare workers. I cried last night watching so many of my colleagues in New York. And I found out a dear emergency room physician and a dear friend also are both in ICU on ventilators. So that's tough. Tina is learning crisis management and leadership in a way that you couldn't have before. And Tina, I think that's such a cool thing to bring up, because I'm going to add that comment up there so that you guys can see that. When we went through 2009 in the finance industry, and that didn't affect all of us personally on the daily, like completely disrupt our lives like it is today. When we went through that, so many people were shocked. And I had just written my first book, and it really exposed some parts of our MBA that we had skipped, because all of us who came out of business school and leadership school, we knew how to lead when times were good. But a lot of us didn't know how to lead when times weren't good. And so these crises really expose that part of our leadership that we really need to build out, like the rest of that curriculum. And although it's not our favorite situation, you really can mine this time for learning. And one of the core competencies in accountability is continuous learning. And there are just some things, folks, we cannot read about it in a book. We can only learn experientially. And so I love that that's one of your learnings, Tina. Thanks for coming on. Hi, Trish. You're welcome. Glad to do this. Kurt is up. He's learning that mindset matters just as much, if not more, than operations and logistics. I'm going to refrain, Kurt, from saying to everybody, I told you so. But, you know, one of the things that we look at, of course, is the physical spreading of the virus. But what we're really starting to look at is how quickly panic can spread, fake news can spread, misinformation can spread, our own anxiety can spread. And just as important that like hand hygiene, washing your hands is really understanding how your mind works and how the world works. Because without that information, if you don't know how your mind works, you'll get played by your ego. And I was just on a Zoom call with a mastermind group I'm in, a bunch of other incredible thought leaders. And one of the thought leaders was talking about we're in 4 different crises. The first, of course, is the health crisis. The second is going to be, the financial crisis that we're trying to address. The third is long-term going to be the debt crisis, the national debt and the world debt. The fourth one's going to be the mental health crisis that this is exposing, and not just, for people that are aware of mental health, issues or challenges. Like, I mean, just imagine, my heart goes out to people who have lived with anxiety. I have one of my sons who lives with a lot of anxiety, and he sent me an Instagram meme, and it was kind of mocking the rest of us because he's like, oh yeah, people are now so concerned about going out and who can infect them and hand washing. And he's like, welcome to the world most of us deal with every single day. And hopefully that makes us more compassionate. So mindset really does matter. And we're getting lots of calls, which is why I'm doing these just free to everybody Facebook Lives and my podcasts. I'm taking questions. I've pivoted the topic of those, but our calls are, we've postponed training and we're doing our best we can in logistics and operations, but we need a webinar for our staff and our team, on the basics of resilience and how to, stay out of stress and anxiety and get in the moment. So Kurt, I love that that's one of your learnings. Rebecca is checking in. She's saying that she's stressed out. She's needing to reduce staff and dreading the conversation. Let's talk about that a minute. Gosh dang it. First of all of you, if you have feelings coming up, acknowledge them. This is tough stuff. We have people hurting. We have people, dying. We have people without the tools they need. We're having to cut staff. This is tough stuff. It's painful. Pain doesn't need to become suffering. And what happens when we're in pain or we have to do painful things is we try and shortcut. We try and get through it fast, or we try to, just the facts, ma'am, or we try. Tend to the people first, be authentic. As you put it out there, you have 2 messages. I care about you. We care about you. This is our new reality. And then ask folks, like, how can we support you now? How can we support you going forward? And people will come back with like mad, crazy answers. Well, then don't lay me off. Well, that's not an option. I care about you, broken record, but authentic. And I really am interested in what I could do in the next few moments or the next few days or ongoing to support you. Do you know how to apply for unemployment? Do you know how to do these things? We have a page up, or we're directing you to a page, or we want to do Facebook Lives to check in with people and, care for and about you going forward. Like, having to deliver the message is, you didn't create this reality, but you can't protect people from the reality. And the cleaner you can do that, that's clean pain, the better. The dirty pain comes when you sugarcoat it or avoid it or don't give good information. So clean pain is, this is what we know. And clean pain is, this is what we don't know. And here's our commitment. And now let's tend to you. And let's find ways that you can move through this as skillfully as possible with all of your fears and all of your anxiety. Where can you go for help? How can you take care of you and your family? What's the first predicament this brings up for you? So clean pain, Be willing to just spend some time. You don't need to fix this. You don't need to know what to do. You don't need to have the answers. You need to deliver the pain and then not abandon people emotionally if at all possible. You don't have to take their emotions. You don't have to respond. You don't have to even, give any quick answers, but you just have to let people know that you're willing to be in relationship. You're not willing to do their work for them. You can't do more for them than they're willing to do for themselves. This is their moment to step up, and it's a defining moment for them to step into greatness, to prove to themselves that they're capable of far more than they ever thought about, but only if they're willing to get curious, stay open, look for the helpers, ask for help. If they shut down and toggle down, they will hurt themselves more than the actual pain. They will take themselves into suffering. And so as people make accusations back to you out of anger, it's like, well, you wouldn't understand, you're this. If it's true, agree with them, acknowledge, yes, that's true. And then don't move into defensiveness, move into, now how can I help you? And just be honest and caring. And if you have to set boundaries to say, here's my limit right now, and today with what I can give or the time I can spend, here's what I'm going to leave you with for resources. I really encourage you to reach out and take care of yourself and leave them with hope, not false hope. Hope is, I believe in you. I am confident that you have more reserves than you've ever thought about, that there are more helpers than you've ever seen. And just remember to reach out, ask for help, those types of things. So all of us need to get really skilled at being with people without fixing people, especially when it's unfixable. Most of us aren't good at just empathy, just I won't leave you. Most of us aren't good when we can't take pain away and we can't change the reality. Well, here's your practice. Let's get good at this. As an adult, you need to get good with things you can't fix so that you can be emotionally present and listening and truly in the moment with things that you can't impact, right? And as an adult, you got to get good with your relationship with uncertainty. And how's that going? How is your relationship with being uncertain? If you are able to get still and be still, even in times where things seem to be falling apart, if you can get still, I'm not talking about intellectually bypassing it. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't denying that so many people are hurting. If you can just practice for 1 minute getting still with what's uncertain, and then 2 minutes, and then 3 minutes, as an adult, you need to cultivate that relationship with uncertainty. You need to be able to be present for people that you can't fix. And really, this is a time to practice that stuff, just like it's a good time to practice crisis leadership. And in fact, I was talking to somebody, I don't know if this will resonate with any of you, and she's like, I'm getting so bored. She's an older person, and she's like, oh my gosh, now that everything is shut down, I'm bored out of my mind. And I thought about boredom, and I thought, I can honestly tell you, I don't think I've ever been bored. Why is that? Boredom is a behavior or a tantrum your ego throws when all of the distractions of the external have been taken away, and it's the last resort before you're about to get still and just be in the moment. It's the last kind of behavioral tantrum source of anger. I don't have anything to distract me from what's inside. And therefore, I'm going to name this, it's called boredom, which is my dissatisfaction with not having enough things in my life to take me away from what is inside. So one of the things that's amazing in these times is that our busyness has covered up a lot. Now, there's feelings around what's happening, but for a lot of you, there's feelings around what just hasn't been dealt with for you right now, that you have used busyness or maybe shopping or activity or drinking or overworking or any escape. You've used that as a human being to not have to really experience what's going on in your inner world. And so, Rebecca, I can't fix it for you. I do know it's a tough thing. It's not our favorite to do as a leader. And you have a lot to do with how stressed out you are about this. Because if you're stressed out, you might be thinking, I know how they'll react, and I know that this will be damaging in their life, and I know that this, and here's the deal, you don't know. When I look back in my life, there were turning points, and in the moment, I thought it was the absolute worst thing that could ever happen in my life. And when I look back now, it was the most blessed thing that could ever happen in my life, big and small. I had signed on with Mars Confectionery to go to Australia for a 9-month to year-long contract, and I could take my kids to consult. And it was a whole year paid contract in Australia with my kids. It was when I was early consulting. I was just so excited. I was bringing a whole curriculum to leaders in Sydney. Dream job. I even had started to shut down my business. I had sold off some clients. I had transferred them to other consultants. It was amazing. And 1 week before I was to go for good, I'd been traveling over there. 1 week before, they called and canceled the entire contract. So not only did I not get that contract, I had given away probably a year's worth of work, and I was the major bread earner. And I had, at that time, Henry was just a baby. So I had 2 boys that were, under 7 and a baby. And I remember just really being hit hard by that it was just game over, bonk, just abandoned ship. And it wasn't something great that replaced it, but it was something I was grateful for. And within about a month of me finding out that I would not be going to Australia, unfortunately, my mom and my sister both were diagnosed with breast cancer within maybe a week or 2 apart from one another. I can't remember exactly. Had I been in Australia, I would have been under contract and unable to return for that 9-month period. And I would not have been able to be there in that crazy time when my sister and my mom were diagnosed with really significant breast cancer 1 or 2 weeks apart. And so we have to be careful when we stress ourselves out, because we attach to what we have to do in reporting reality is ruining somebody else's life, because we don't know that. What will hurt people is if we don't give it up straight up and if we abandon them emotionally. And so there was a time with when I was consulting with Gateway 2000 that basically we're shutting everything down. And legally, it was like we had a couple people left standing, and I'm like, I have to fire you, and then you have to sign back in and fire me. Like, we're turning the lights off. And I was so proud of how my team did, because up until the very last day, they were just amazing. And what we started to say is, we're not going to step down from greatness, because the reason we're great isn't transactional, that we're great as long as things are going our way. We're great because we like who we are personally when we're great. And my last day on this job is something that will be my best interview answer for my next job. How do I know I can count on you to stay great? Well, let me tell you a story. Even as I was being fired and shutting things down, I was making sure that everything was left in incredible shape. And one of my podcast interviews Joni Wheeler from Blue Cross Blue Shield in Nebraska. And she has this incredible story about a group that knew, I think 2 years out, that they would be closing down all services. And instead of being laid off, they just started launch services. And it wasn't just the headhunter where we're going to come in and help you with your resume. It wasn't, resettlement services. It truly was launch services. And people started to talk about their launch plans and how they were going to use this for their benefit, how they were going to get what they came for and mine this experience. for, to curate and really craft what's happening to them today to ensure that they do their part to ensure that they come out of this evolving. And so I wish you the best, Rebecca. We're going to be here Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for a while, if this is helpful to you guys. So I am all about, let me know how it goes, and let's follow each other through these. Hi from Iowa, Tracy. You guys are awesome. And loved Thursday's live session. Thanks. This is from Lisa. Thanks for telling us that it's okay to do less now and to sleep and rest more. Checked out Downward Dog Yoga, as you suggested. Downward Dog Yoga, as many others are, giving all their classes away for free until May 1st. So for those of you that are feeling like you want to, first of all, you got to listen to you, that voice inside you. No have-tos, no shoulds. Some of your voices are like, I will be successful if I get through today giving my children more than bread and water. Awesome. Do that. And some of you are like, no, I really feel some inspiration to, learn to play the piano. Awesome. Do that. There is not one right way to go through this, and there is not one way that will take you through this weeks at a time. I guarantee you're going to have some real volatility. If you're not having volatility, you are not plugged in. You're in some denial mechanism. There's got to be, as a human being, some volatility. There's not one right way to do this. The way through this is to get out of the shaming and the lack of self-compassion and the all I shoulds, and find out what you truly are finding energy building and energy depleting. Notice yourself. Notice what triggers you. Notice when you lose your reserves and you're getting irritable or emotion. If you do nothing else, I just want you to make you your subject of study. We tend to move through life noticing how other people go through life. It is our time to notice how we go through life. I want you observing yourself, observing your thinking, observing your mind, observing what builds your energy, what is joyful. And when you observe something, I want you to greet that with compassion. And when you observe other people and you start judging, stop, I want you to greet that with compassion. And then in that, I want you not to tag that as an identity. Oh my gosh, I'm so emotional. It's not a fault. Just notice that, gosh, a characteristic I have found in my spirit is this seems to be a soft spot for me. It's not your identity. It's just something you've noticed about yourself so that you can separate that out and then apply love and breath and attention. The quality of your life is determined by where you put your attention. It really is. And as you move through, just notice. I had a great conversation with someone this morning, and they're like, I've noticed I get a little judgy. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's good to know. And, she's somebody who is working hard to keep her kids safe, and she's playing by the rules. She's a rule follower. And she looks out the window and she's seeing other parents have like little play dates. And she's like, unbelievable. And I'm like, that's good to notice how quick you are to judge. Then go underneath that and notice what's the fear around that. The fear is, if it were me, the fear is my kid missing out, or the fear is, me needing to explain to my child that I'm making these decisions. So the fear for me is claiming an unpopular decision. I love to be liked. And especially if I have to spend the next 3 weeks inside with you, it's like, notice, what is that about for you? Gosh dang. I'm a rule follower, and I tend to like other people to follow the rules, because if I can control that, then I don't need to claim my own choices, good or bad. And what do I need to do in this moment? Where do I need to get skilled? Oh my gosh, I need to get skilled at talking with my kids and saying, I want to claim this. I'm doing my best to get us through safely. And one of the things that is important to me is that we don't have contact with others. And then I want you to notice some more, like your own hypocrisy, because no one will get through this perfectly. What you're judging other people on, take a look at yourself so that you can breed compassion for others. Like, you may be critical of them having play dates, but have you canceled your cleaning person yet? Which is kind of a first world problem. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that's an acceptable risk in my life because I really like my house getting clean. It's like, if we are uncomfortable and we go external with it, we're in ego because we're always going to be one up, one down. The ego is doing this. The ego also does comparative suffering. I've had some comments where it's like, Sai, you're not really in this with us. You're isolating in Mexico. And I'm like, my response, yes, I'm isolating. I'm doing my part. I'm staying home. It's true, I'm in Mexico. Is there anything I can help you with? I don't want to get defensive to that. But at the same time, Brene Brown talks about this comparative suffering where, my suffering is worse than your suffering. What if there just was room for all of our pain? Because that's a game you can never win. For right now, I am isolated looking at a beach. In a week or two, the reality in Mexico is they have 1,100 ventilators in the entire country. So while people are saying, perhaps they see my suffering as not as bad as theirs today, who knows? Like, I know one thing that we're working on, just to give people some perspective. In poverty in Mexico, there's 70% of the households in our vicinity, in Todos Santos and Pescadero, that don't have running water. And the one thing that we all know we can do to not spread the virus is wash our hands. And we have a group that their biggest need is not only food, but water. And so there's a lot of groups out trying to ensure that people have the ability to wash their hands frequently. And so, and I'm not saying that so you guys go, oh, poor Sai, because like I said, so far, it's okay. But let's not get into comparative suffering because we will always come up short because our response to somebody else will be unloving. And when we aren't loving others, it's a reflection of not being so loving to ourselves. So, yeah, just notice. And I hope you end up to a place of compassion. I screw this up, but only daily, doing the best I can. And other people screw this up as well. We're all doing the best we can with what we got. Everybody make their own choices. Move away from the judgment. When you're toggled up and you're not down, but you're up, when you're toggled up, your natural inclination after the judgment, when you're beyond ego, is how can I help? And for a lot of us, we've had to recalibrate. Like, sitting on the couch as helping feels completely unnatural to a lot of us. And it's like, how can we help? What can I do? And one of the things I'm listening to a lot, I love David White's poetry. If you haven't discovered David White and of course Mary Oliver, and poetry for me gives language to things I can't always name or identify. And our temptation is to name things too soon. But if you get involved in poetry, you can just play with and kind of listen to how it resonates when it's named like this and how it resonates when it's named like that. And you can just connect in with all these different edges of what the experience is like. For me, it's really soothing. And, it's really wonderful. And he's got some great stuff out there. And one of them is something about when waking. He's got a tape that goes through a lot of poems. But one of the things he talks about is when you are overwhelmed, it's like get close in. Our temptation with anxiety is not only to get into the future, but to get really big. Oh my gosh, how can I save New York? What's happening in New York is horrible. Is he reminded me, get close in. Get close in. What do I need to do in my home? If I want to make sure that I can help people. Let's help the people right in front of me. Like, get close in, because that leads you to the next choice you can make that actually has some profound impact. And so if you want the world to be more peaceful, start right at home being more peaceful. So learning how to manage a team, Erin says, while learning to work from home while 3 kids need me also. I'm going to just put that up, Erin. Dang. Welcome to the human race. My hope is that we get a lot more tolerant of messiness in life. We really have work to do it all. And if you're like me, a big overfunctioner, I've pretended, how many meetings have I pretended not to be a nursing mom who's about to leak through her shirt? Can you wrap up this point? Because I don't want to, acknowledge I need to go pump. So I'm just going to pretend. Like, how many of us have lived stressful, compartmentalized lives? And that doesn't mean that we don't have to be accountable to deliver on and tend to the important things. But what we need to do in my podcast that's coming out Monday, I answer a question from my friends at Kohler about how do we keep what we need for structure, routine, and professionalism, and how do we curate out the non-important, and how do we work those edges of managing a team virtually through a crisis, working from home, with probably another person working from home, whether it's your kid home from college, or if you're in a partnership, or or if you're home on your own and really isolated, or if you're trying to do kids and be a teacher. And not only that, but it's like we don't have people coming into our home to support. It's like I call it like Little House on the Prairie. Like, I have to go check the water in my generator in case the solar is a cloudy day. Like, I'm like, what? Not complaining, just noticing how we do this. And the first thing is be vulnerable. Remember that video where that poor little girl is coming in trying to get to her dad, and her mom's like got a baby on the hip and is like dragging her out of the room? Is there a better way to be vulnerable and to say, you know what? I'm distracted right now. I have a child. I thought I had them set up, and I don't. So can you, on this Zoom call, do X, Y, and Z? I'm not going to try and do both at the same time. I'm going to be back in 5 minutes and see if I can't find another way to get this person settled. What we're trying to do is keep everything under wraps, and it's so stressful to control our external circumstances. What I want you to start doing is make choices about where to give your full attention so that you might have actual impact and meet a need of someone, so that you then can come back. And instead of ignoring things like in rotation, like, how can you make the moments count? It will take a lot less time than you think. How can you get fully present if a child's coming in? How can you then, after the moment, do some coaching with that child and say, you know what, you're at an age where I can teach you how to be more self-entertaining. So we're going to practice this. We're going to have, I don't know, a point system. We're going to make it really cool. I'm going to only have 45-minute meetings so that every 15 minutes, which you'll never do perfectly, I can be with you. For those of you guys that are managing teams remotely, you got to recontract with folks. Otherwise, you'll abandon them or micromanage them out of your fear. When people are around us, there's all kinds of unstructured ways that we're transmitting information. Just a second, I lost my earpod. There's all kinds of ways where we're transmitting information, and that we don't realize. And so maybe you were a super high accountable, and I didn't have to do a lot of clarifying, or, you just read my mind when you were around. All bets are off the table right now. It's time to recontract. If you're working with a team virtually, take some time to be present with that individual team member. What have you noticed about yourself? How are you self-reflecting? What are your preferences? Are you introvert? Are you extrovert? Like for some of us, I'm not going to lie, as an introvert, I'm noticing I'm actually connecting more with people because I have some more time and a lot more people are willing to get on social media with me. And odd, but for some of these extroverts, there's a couple of people I call just because I know they're extroverted. And I'm like, I figured you needed somebody to talk to by now. Like, read me out of, read out loud out of the book you're reading. I don't care what we need to do, but I just wanted to be with you. And it goes way beyond that. With my team, like we give each other permission. Like in the past, I would just always trust that you know what to do, but we are moving so fast and we have huge projects going on right now, like hundreds of pages of things we're delivering right now in the legal system, like big, mind-blowing stuff. And so what we've recontracted with is we've recontracted, don't trust each other. Isn't that a weird contract? Trust the intent of each other. I trust that you want to do a good job and that you never would intentionally slack off. But you're human. I'm not going to trust you. I am going to validate and be mindful, and you double check me. I'm going to double check you. Don't be afraid to ask, like whatever it is managing these virtual teams, recontract, do some debriefing and self-reflecting. You guys, it's been 3 days. What's working, what's not working, what helps, what doesn't help. We took how we normally meet and we just put that virtual. Anybody finding things that aren't helpful, anybody finding things that we want to intentionally cut out. There's no one right way to go through this. If there is, I would just say consciously. The more you can get conscious, the more you can get intentional. The more you can get things visible to folks virtually, the more conscious and intentional you can be. So this is the beautiful tension between being respectful of people's times, keeping standards high, showing up. You may not have to show up in a suit and tie, but you do have to show up and turn that video camera on because we need to make context. So there are ways that you can decide what your new non-negotiables are in reality-based leadership philosophy, and start working with those, and also, mercy, grace, tolerance. There's a quote. It's probably a Bible verse. I was raised Catholic, so we didn't often get right into Bible verses, but it says, "But for the grace of God, go I." And today, more than ever, we have to stop our judging of other people, because this crisis is not only exposing our own ego preferences, it's exposing our privilege. When I think about the cities and who is still crammed into subway cars, it's not some of us. It is people who are lower on the economic scale, who feel like they don't have a lot of choices, who are essential workers. Like, we just have to really get compassionate and realize and notice just our privilege. I was on the phone last night with a nurse who quit her job, and she is feeling the guilt of abandoning her team and the guilt of she should be get a scarlet letter and be shamed in her profession. And how sad is that? She's a single mom with little kids, and it's just sad that she feels the weight of other people's expectations. Now, a lot of this she was doing to herself, but we can't possibly know the way through this for another. So, Erin, I keep in there. And you guys, lower your standards, but not in important ways. So just get through. I talk a lot on the podcast about structure and stuff, so I'll leave it there. Oh, my coach and friend, Stephen Matthew Adams, is on. He has so much to say. If you are not following him, you've got to follow him. He's putting so much good content out there. Michelle says the essential workers are still going to work daily, and she's an essential worker going to work daily, and it is hard keeping the work going, helping people through the crisis. It's hard. Learning to just listen and give people the grace card. You guys, if you need to fill your pockets with something, don't fill it with fear. Fill it with grace, mercy. Um, I talk to the essential workers, and I'm no expert. Like, I'm not out there. And I had to really, my temptation is to fly home no matter what. I'm a social worker. I want to be out in the drive up lines, educating people about, whether they need to be tested or not, and making sure people have like food and clothes. Like, if you want to know my heart, that's where I want to be. And what I've noticed is somehow there's so many stories where this pandemic has put us where to others it may seem it's most comfortable, but somehow it's put me where I'm least comfortable, which is on my own, not helping in the crisis, but trying to go deep and think about, from a mental health perspective, how do we take mental health to the mainstream? And how do we rebuild after this crisis? How do we tend to the people? And how do we forgive each other for the systems we all created or voted in that let so many people down? Like, how do we restore? How do we come together differently as a nation and a world? How do we make sure that we don't waste this pandemic? How do we apply these learnings to what's happening in global warming? Like, it's really become clear to me that that's the deep, messy work I need to get into for myself. And so for those of you that are out there, there's some people out there. I was reading last night, or 2 nights, I've lost track of my days too, an incredible college professor. And she just went through and she said, okay, here's been my week. I hadn't heard from somebody and I got really concerned, and I finally get a hold of them. They haven't handed in a single assignment. Come to find out, they're 19 years old. They're a tech in an emergency room. Somebody else like had a parent pass. And so what she was getting at is she was sharing all these stories, and there were other ones that weren't quite as dramatic from her students as she's checking in, is how often she gave the grace card and how the grace card gave people room to find hope again and regroup. And then she was able to like deal with them emotionally so that she could then get them back in the game physically. And for those of you that don't understand your brain, so you have like this emotional brain, this frontal kind of cortex that fits on top of your thinking brain. And when that's not connected, it's out here like wigging out. And you can't get to this part of the brain until you've reattached that. And how you do that is through some emotional safety and security. And how that happens is not stepping on people's boundaries, not getting over aggressive in fixing things, not giving advice, and not judge, like all those things we do that leave people very little space. The ability to hold space for people is a sacred ability. Space for breath and self-reflection, and we can't have physical connection right now, but just let me hold some space. If it's a minute in time, if it's space where I just make eye contact or take a moment to stop and smile as you pass, to see you, just that space allows people to get some air and some grace. If that's what you're dishing out, that's what bowels are for. Like, give it away, like give them that, and then we can put them back into play. But her whole point, my story's wandering, her whole point is, it was really adorable. She went through these things and she's like, so, other college faculty, just remember your people are going through a lot, maybe lighten up a lot. Like, is it really so important that everybody has all their stuff in on time? Like, remember your people are going through stuff. And then her last post, you're scrolling through, I think it was on Instagram, her last post is, okay, forget all of that. If you're being an asshole right now based on old rules that somehow you think whether that kid got that paper in on time has anything to do with whether they're going to contribute to the world, stop it. And I just died laughing with this post. I'll try and find it if it's still up there. It might have been on her story, but it was just fantastic. So Michelle, I don't know what kind of essential work you're in. People don't have what they need. We don't have them protected. Our reality is tough. And I just keep telling people, like, sometimes all you got left is like love big. I remember in working in hospice, and the name of the game there comes down to, what are you scared of? And if it's passing alone or passing in pain, maybe we can fix some of this. But in the end, I've got the basics that I can cultivate an unending supply of. I can give you my presence. I can see you. I can acknowledge you. I can give us moments and space, and I can give us grace and mercy. And I can just like be with you at the end of the day. That's what we got, folks, to give. So Natalie says she's loved this time together. She used to work in the healthcare industry, but a few years ago joined the grocery industry. Little did you know that that would be an interesting leap. When leading teammates through a storm, RBL has helped so very much. I appreciate that. When you come up with a philosophy and build on other people's work, but I take a stand, I'll just talk to myself and I go, I really recommend this way. There's something of fear back there that's like, crap, what if this stuff doesn't work? And I would tell you that I'm hearing from a lot of folks that it's been a really good foundation for them. And that gets me choked up, because there were times I was really scared and I didn't want to like speak my voice because it was so counter at the time what a lot of other voices were saying. And thank goodness I had people like you guys to support it. Angela is coming to us from Hawaii. Aloha. I'm assuming Angela, yeah, I remember from Hawaii. Tiffany, practicing and failing and succeeding and failing again. Oh my gosh. Who is just loving this part? I have a great idea. We're going to do this. That completely was a train wreck disaster, not happening. Our tolerance for failure, we're getting a lot of the practice, right? And our tolerance for, I would call it unnecessary work from even essential people, just a lot of you are in small businesses, and this incredible gift came out that said, you know what, we're going to give you some temporary relief. Just keep your people employed. We've got this system in place. Let's not dismantle the system. Let's at least, if we can, keep this infrastructure in place. And so they came out with money and the applications open, and the banks didn't really have their guidelines yet. And it's just those little things where people get to experience their own tolerance of messiness. And if nothing else, guys, you got to improve your tolerance of messiness. Leaders see messiness and they don't give sympathy, colluding with people. Oh, yeah, this is a bunch of crap. They build people's resilience by saying, oh, this is a perfect example of building your own muscle of tolerance for messiness. Oh, this is perfect. Here's what we know, here's what we don't know. How could we have impact? Leaders, you got to step in and manage energy away from why this is screwed up and why we shouldn't have to and how bad this is, to honesty. Here's what we have right now. And let's keep our energy focused and conserved, but focused on what can we do next to move this thing forward. What do we know for sure? And people can get lost in, who said what and who didn't take responsibility for what. And the leaders people are admiring right now aren't even responding to accusations coming their way. Like, what are these healthcare workers doing with all these masks? They're probably selling them on the black market. Our ego, if you're a healthcare worker who is putting your mask in a little bag to be sent off in the evening to be, sterilized by innovation, UV light, good job, Nebraska Med and UNMC, that's offensive. right? Your egos want to be like, I just found a target for my stress. Leaders are saying, we're not putting energy into that. If there's an allegation or investigation you want to have happen, let me know. In the meantime, as for me and my people, we're going here. And we are going to keep innovating, and we are going to share this protocol with every health center we can get it shared with. And we are going to move this thing forward. And that right now, when you can't change reality, enabling is protecting people from their direct relationship to reality, which coddles them, which robs them of the resilience they need to develop right now, which will rob them from learning that they can trust themselves. We need to teach people right now that resilience is just not about trusting your circumstances, that they're predictable and that everything will go as planned. Resilience is trusting yourself and your capability and the network of positive people that you've assembled. And if you want to know more about that, what we did on Thursday, these are up, recorded on Facebook. You can go back and listen to other ones. We're going to cut them up and put them out there so that you guys have easier ways to pass these on to your teams and your family and your friends. But really, just helping people manage their energy. Leaders, do not step down, and being with people is not experiencing this with the same mindset they're experiencing it. It's not toggling down and colluding and sympathizing. That is not leadership. Leadership is saying, if you're willing to edit your story, if you're willing to drop your attachment to, if you're willing to not name this so soon, if you're willing to stay curious and open, if you're willing to toggle up and look for the one tiny portal of where we can have impact, come this way. And that's what we need right now. This mental health crisis. And I really think when he said that today, I'm like, that's going to be long after we figure out the money. Money is just a construct that, I don't want to break any bubbles. It's not even real, but that's the graduate course. What we're going to be left with is restoring people's belief in themselves, belief in humanity. Like we will have a lot of severed connections of people that really feel failed by their own ability to move through the world skillfully and failed by connections with us. And so this mental health crisis is going to take each of us to become leaders in the ability to help people understand that you're just believing your own thinking right now. Freedom is right on the other side of questioning your thinking and seeing reality for what it is. And reality is never as harsh as our story makes it. And reality is pretty harsh right now, but it's not as harsh as our story makes it. So, Tiffany, keep failing, girlfriend. You got this. We got people here from California. Mental hygiene is Ellie's like got something to shout out at you. She's our social media person. Yay, Madison. My neighbors who are we're keeping each other sane from a difference are from Madison, and they are just gifts. A lot of physicians from Wisconsin headed out to New York, is what I'm hearing. Thank you. Oh, Carly, I love you guys. Jonalene, tell everybody hi at Carly. I love that you're using RBL. I love that we got that to you. Lynn Hayes, love you, girl. Love what you're doing out there in the world. And we've got lots of good comments here. I'm just making sure. Last time I didn't get through to see all my cool shout outs for people I love. Natalie, this is a great one. She's founding that eye contact, if only for a minute, can bring calmness. You guys, many of us are masked up, and many more of you are going to be masked up if you're going out. All we got left is our eyes. Now, for some of you shielded, like you're going to have to figure out the times it's safe to take that off or to just really ask somebody, look at me. There are times when people are kind of freaking out and their temptations, humans go, calm down, and verbally overwhelm their senses. For those of us that are in therapy, we know that that's kind of the worst thing to do. If somebody is freaking out, a great thing to do is to gently say, look at me, and to send all the love you can through all we got left. All we are seeing right now are each other's eyes, and find gestures that just move from the heart. Find gestures. We can't hug. We can't do all of this stuff. So find gestures. It's like I'm opening my heart to you, or a lot of people are using the heart thud. Find ways to communicate that convince people that you adore them. And so thanks for bringing that up, Natalie. That's such a great piece of advice. You guys are so smart. Harriet, oh my gosh. She said, I've never worked this hard. Zoom meetings morning to evening, many challenges daily in terms of students, faculty, staff. Like, we're trying to train trainees. Some of us are putting them into situations earlier than we would prefer. We need to meet accreditation stuff. We need to help patients. We need to keep people safe. We have kicked people's asses if they weren't using PPE. Like, I've written people up for not using PPE. Oh, wait a minute. Do what we've taught you not to do. Do the best you can. Oh, wait a minute. We got new things from the CDC. It's changing. We need, as a leader, we got to be in this. Yep, it changed. That's our reality. Yes, it's not our ideal situation. Yes, given, and a powerful word is given. Given where we find ourselves today, and we won't have the clinical hours in at the accreditation. I can only imagine, Harriet, what you're going through. Given that, how do we take care of each other and do the best we can with what we've got? So Harriet's so wise. What has helped me get through the daily work extending into the weekends is visual contact with family, friends, and colleagues. For 3 weeks, some colleagues and I have had a happy hour on Zoom where we're able to share and laugh. Family Zoom get-togethers are great. You know what? I just couldn't agree. That's why Ellie did such a good job finding this avenue for me to come to you guys on Facebook Live to, like, just, if nothing else, like, connect. And you guys can see me. I can see your pictures and comments. Get out there and just FaceTime your folks, Zoom folks, get as many things up on screen. I love that. We got to see each other face to face. Please help. I've advocated to allow staff to stay safe and work at home. How do I respond to staff anger and resentment when they're not asked to account for their time? Bethany, I'm going to take that offline. I'll put that in the podcast. Ellie, mark that one. We're running out of time, but work from home, homeschooling last year. So it hasn't been a huge change. Some of us, we're ready for what's next, which is my whole point on change management. I'm trying to figure out what I can gain from this experience and not sure what I should be working towards. Keep thinking. Yoga's been a lifeline for many. What would you say to healthcare workers that are leaders, are also clinicians, are spending less time face-to-face, patient care than people reporting to us? So I'm going to take a lot of these online. I'm going to scan right now in the last couple minutes and make sure I just call out to you guys. Jody, it's wonderful to see you here. Jonaline, I always go back and read your comments. And Atlanta, Cassie is saying hi. Natalie said the last broadcast about using words right now has made such an impact. We're putting stuff out there. Like I said, we're going to shorten this down. I'll be back Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 11 a.m. or I think it's noon central. We'll be out there for you guys. We're putting out tons of clips, tons of podcasts. Everything is free. Get people plugged into the stuff. We're trying to make it as short as possible so we know people don't have hours at a time. Tracy, my sister-in-law, is out there. Good to see you. And lots of people watching from Iowa. I'm a proud Iowa girl. Go Hawks. Everybody needs more love, you guys. Iowa Specialty Hospital, we got to shout them out. Whisper that prayer for peace, self-love, and food control. So I have my best to give and give grace. Whatever it is, whether it is a mantra, a prayer, watch our language right now. And you know what we're going to talk about next time? I'm going to make a note. You guys are going to screw this up, and you are going to yell at people around you. I guarantee you, unless you're a saint, you're going to mess this thing up. Bethany said, "Go Hawks." You're going to mess this thing up. I'm going to teach you about repair attempts and amends. And people at times make really crappy repair attempts where they try and get back in relationship with us, but they don't apologize as perfect as we need them to. I want to teach you how to accept even crappy repair attempts. So one of the topics we'll talk about is how in these relationships do you get through them. And I heard one of my walks that the only building block of a friendship is the ability to forgive. That a friendship is a series of forgiveness events. That like the only way you stay friends for 30 years, it's just a series of forgiveness events. And so we need to talk about that. My time is up. I'm sending you guys big, big love. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. If you get triggered by something, notice it. Love yourself through it. Good to know. For those of you looking for where you can evolve, keep looking. For those of you that have 100 lessons right in front of your face, take a nap and then pick one. Be good to each other. No one's left behind. Take care of the person next to you. Love everybody. Everybody love everybody. Take care.